Hello, Ryan here, and welcome to Star Citizen Sunday. This is a weekly show which covers all of the news from the week just past. Be sure to subscribe if you like what you see, and let's get on with it. This week, we see the updated caves and mining subcomponents coming in Alpha 3.13. We hear from the vehicle tech team addressing physical damage, scanning, and more, plus Abent reveals that ICache is in and working. So this week's Inside Star Citizen kicked off looking at the upcoming new additions to caves coming in Alpha 3.13. For this next patch, they are adding 6 new cave entrances into the game, and this will add a sense of scale with huge open environments which players will only be able to enter or exit using a ship. In addition to these larger caves, they want to give us more opportunity to explore by being able to drive through them in a vehicle, and I really love that we'll be able to load up our backpacks with med pens, food and drink and so forth, set off down exploring the depths of these caves while remaining safe inside our Ursa rover, even loading up the back end of the rover with harvestables or minables that we could sell on later. Now, they have recently received new environment probes which will allow them to light up the cave entrances better. They have also played around with the cave layouts a little bit to provide more spots for cover so they can encourage more skirmishes inside them. Personally, it's really nice to see that these caves are finally increasing in type, style and quantity. I think they originally wanted to add hundreds of these caves to the verse, but obviously due to server constraints they weren't able to. This looks as though they are now expanding on this, and they do look incredible, and for my org we will have to explore them all thoroughly together and maybe even have some gunfights as well. So for the second part of Inside Star Citizen, it was looking at these mining laser subcomponents. These are also coming in Alpha 3.13, and as they are continuing to expand on the gameplay loop, they wanted to bring in these subcomponents to allow us to further customize how we want to mine, and depending on the mineral that we're mining, this will determine how we set up our ship, our laser, with consumables, subcomponents and so on. These subcomponents allow for smaller tuning parameters to our lasers, and they are very similar to consumables. They attach in the same location on the laser and provide the various buffs or alterations to aid in mining, but instead of them being one-shot trigger items that need to be continuously replaced, they will provide a passive constant change when attached. Another difference between them is that the consumables provide greater power compared to subcomponents, which was mostly done to balance things out with the fact that consumables can run out, but it also appears the price of subcomponents are a lot higher as they are more permanent investments. Of course, they will age, degrade and take damage over time once that system is in, just not with 3.13. When we get these subcomponents, they will come in different tiers of power. The top tier subcomponents will be more closer to the mining consumable level of power, but they will cost a lot more as well, as they obviously don't run out. You can have both consumables and subcomponents attached at the same time, and there will be some that work better together than others. So consumables will still trigger just as they do now, whereas subcomponents will be continuously active. And I'm sure that we can figure out some great combinations as well that I will make videos on. We actually got to see a couple of these subcomponents and their effects, although I will say this is still work in progress, so the values most likely will change to some degree, but it does give us an indication of what they do. So we have the Greycat Industrial FLRT-L, L being large, I assume, and this decreases the extraction rate by 40%, but also decreases the amount of inert material collected by 10%. We have the MISC XTR modules. We have the normal standard size, large and XL. They all do the same thing, but their rates and power increase as you go up in size, as well as the price. So the XTR basic model is going to be around 2,000 United Earth credits, and this increases the extraction rate by 20%, but reduces the laser power by 5. With its description reading, it expedites the extraction of valuable minerals by overpowering the extraction beam to increase its extraction rate, though doing so lowers the maximum laser power output. For the XTRL module, which is probably the large module, that is 6,000 United Earth credits, and this increases the extraction rate by 40, so doubling that of the basic one, while reducing the laser power by 4% instead of 5. And then the XL module is 20,000 United Earth credits, with 50% increase to extraction rate, and only a 2% reduction in laser power. So you can see how this range of XTR modules vary as the sizes increase. Now they're also updating the UI for mining to show the component and consumable bonuses that are actively being gained or lost depending on what you're using, showing you the values that are being modified at the time they are. They have also included a range indicator to help players get within the best range for the laser being used, which will be very helpful. Now they said the next step after the release of this will be to introduce mining gadgets, and in the example that they talked about was you could maybe place a gadget on a rock that you are intending to mine, which will lower its resistance, allowing you to mine easier. Now I really love how there is more depth coming to mining, as it's a profession that is thoroughly enjoyable now and very deep at the moment. So the deeper it goes, the more variation in required skill level there is, stretching out the opportunity for players to become experts or master miners and being able to make more money or charge more for their services. Really love this depth. Anyway, that was Inside Star Citizen. Let's move on. So this week's Star Citizen Live was with the vehicle tech team who create the technology to allow other teams to do what they need to do to create features, like the more player-facing features. There's a lot to get through, so the first question is, can we have an update on physical damage? So physical damage is not just about ships, it's actually about everything in the game, be that ships, clothing, armors, boxes, even space stations. Basically everything is made up of a specific material. Now the plan is that every single material in the game should be a real material that acts and reacts appropriately, and right now they are working out all of the values of every material that they have in the game. So things like tensile strength, penetration, density, thickness, and how they all react to the various weapons and damage types like thermal, ballistic, electrical, energy, heat, cold, chemical, so on and so forth. Now these obviously include real-world materials that we know, but also Star Citizen's own designed materials, so they are working closely with narrative to figure those out as well. At this moment, it is just a big Excel sheet with all of the materials and their values, and they are figuring out how they can give that information to the other teams to begin using it. So obviously for vehicles, it will completely change everything. Basically, you can look at a ship and know what its armor is like, where you could potentially deal the most damage, which as you can imagine will take a lot of balancing. But what's incredible about this physical damage is that it works with and applies to everything. If all of the materials in the game have these values and reactions to damage, environments, age and so on, then of course ships, clothing, armor, buildings, space stations, basically everything will react in a realistic and expected manner. Not to mention that all of this will affect combat both in vehicles and in FPS. It applies to repair, as each material will have a specific recipe makeup that will be required to fix them or create that material. It applies to salvaging. Each material has its value and reaction to trying to attain that material, which then obviously ties into the economy and driving the supply and demand for every single material that there is. So this is one reason why, in my opinion, Star Citizen is taking such a long time to develop, and why I'm okay with this, as systems like this are not just a means to a game's end, it is a systemic, dynamic and top-level way to implement something that will make Star Citizen completely unique to anything that has come before it, and extremely engaging and fun. So it sounds like there's still quite a bit of work to do for physical damage, but they are definitely progressing well with it. Next question is, how is the cockpit experience coming along? Now, the tech teams are fully supporting this work. The UI updates are coming soon as well, which will change the cockpit experience a lot, like these per manufacturer UI that we have seen for ages so far. And this will also apply to the MFDs in the ships. Right now, they're working to speed up and simplify the ability for when a player presses a button or toggles a switch, the player's hand will actually animate out and physically interact with that button. They are still working out the complexity of this system, like hooking up the buttons to the actual functions and making sure that it's all applied and working in a logical manner so that it's intuitive and easy to understand, and at the same time allowing the artists to use it as easily as well. The Aegis Gladius was the first ship for this system, and the foundation is in a solid place right now and they are moving forwards with it. So the first thing is just getting one ship completely set up and then figuring out how to expand that to every other ship. So the first part is done, now it's about making it work for everything. Next question is, how do you envision breaching to work? Obviously physical damage will be a big driving force for breaching once the physical damage is implemented. So being able to blow open a door, or anywhere on a ship for that matter, physical damage should allow us to make holes wherever we want to. So deciding where to make the best hole into a ship is going to take some skill and knowledge if you are wanting to breach it. The doors have been updated to drive their own locked state from other items, like the deadbolt item that we saw on Inside Star Citizen recently. This will allow for certain breach points on a door and make that room lose pressure and atmosphere, which is actually one of the other major factors that they are expanding on this room system. So how the room will vent the atmosphere and how airlocks will allow rooms to repressurize. They have been working on a life support system which allows players to alter the room's atmosphere, and the next step is to make the system apparent to players so that we know when it's happening. So basically providing the UI or ways for us to realize and understand what is going on. So it's all being worked on in these individual areas, and eventually it will be all slotted together along with physical damage and get it all working as one unit. Next question is, are there any updates to scanning and radar? So right now they are making it easier for us to find entities and then scan those entities to get the worthwhile information. Each entity type is being set up to provide the information players require. This is both for on foot and in ships. And what we have right now, the scans reveal ship class, pilot, owner, and the health of the ship. They are looking to expand this to the ship's weaponry, its armor that it has, and the cargo and people inside the ship. They are still working out how deep the scan could go, and this will then help to expand on things like smuggling gameplay, so using ships like the MSR to smuggle items in the shielded area protected from our scans so they can slip through the gap. Scanning won't just apply to ships though. They want us to be able to scan pretty much everything like space stations, ground bases and so on. Plus they do want ping and scanning to work with missions, so searching for a mission goal or a location and making it worthwhile for the players. Another big factor that they have also been working on is modifying the detection signatures like infrared, cross-section, electromagnetics, and they're also going to expand it to other signatures like decibels, so the audio. And this will likely be more applicable to FPS, which for example, say that there's a generator in a room kicking out a lot of noise. You could be making noise around that generator and the audio will be harder to pick up as the generator is masking it. Or for example, if you're in a gas cloud, EM and IR will be difficult to pick up due to the distortion. All of this work will allow entities to hide within these signature shadows and other things that will make formation flying worthwhile, so bleeding the signatures and hiding the numbers if you can fly together in sync. It also does sound as though when you activate your missiles in your ship, you will emit increased signatures, which could be part of this missile operator mode and a way of balancing the missile boats so other ships know when a missile boat has activated their missile system, and then they should be more aware of that. They are currently implementing the signatures and detection tech now, and they will do a balance pass to ensure that everything is emitting the appropriate signatures. They will also need the UI again to allow players to know exactly what is going on and when it's happening. But something that Mark Abent mentioned was a big change is now making it all data driven, which means design now has the ability to actually make things like scanners capable of finding specific things like items for medical purposes or cargo purposes, as well as being able to create and expand the upgrade paths for scanners. And with Mark mentioning this framework is now finished and with gameplay design, which allows them to open up this gameplay, my techie friend actually pointed out to me that what this means and what Mark is saying here is regarding the ICache work. Mark is stating that the ICache is working and the conversion is done. Now it's all just about making the gameplay, which is super exciting to hear, as now those floodgates can open. So thank you to Mark for mentioning this, but also to my techie friend for pointing it out to me so I can let you guys know. Next question is, will other ships get the door and light panels like we have with the Mercury Star Runner? And they said it all depends really on the ship and what format the ship needs. The tech is there now to allow this, so we can expect to see more of this moving forwards, but I will say it will be very much based on each manufacturer having their own style and design for these panels. So we saw the Mercury Star Runner, there will be other high-tech styles for Origin, and then you'll get low-tech styles for ships like, or manufacturers like Drake, and everything in between. Next question is regarding ship-in-ship spawning. Now last year they had a prototype of this working using the VMA or the Vehicle Manager app on your Mobiglass to load the vehicle into your ship and then using the ASOP terminal to then spawn those ships. But they said they didn't like this approach for the player as it was two separate systems and a bit confusing, so they're working out the best way to only use the ASOP terminal to make it easier. They still need to address certain issues of maybe parking other people's ships inside your ship and what happens to that person's ship if you store it or then log out of the game. Another issue is to do with cargo, as having cargo inside your ship will obviously block the space for a vehicle. But there is a cargo system refactor happening right now, as we have read in the most recent PU monthly report. So they will utilize that API to prevent these issues from happening. So it is just about resolving these last few tech hurdles, and then they will be able to bring this in. Apparently though, Sean Tracy was saying that there is no need for a physics grid anymore. It sounds as though with the cargo refactor and physical inventories, it's moving away from cargo grids, but I'm not entirely sure where it's going or why it's going, or obviously when we're going to see this, so we will need to hear more regarding what he was on about. But there isn't a lot to solve before we can get ship-in-ship spawning. The last few questions we've got: can we change the light colours inside of our ships? Now they do have a prototype for this, but it will be difficult to make it work for everything. So I guess one day potentially, but it's not a definitive yes or no. Have you considered allowing us to open or close our ship's doors using the mobiGlas? Now they say yes, but it won't be using the mobiGlas. It will be using the personal inner thought remotely, which is great to hear. And actually an even better method than using the mobiGlas in my opinion. Next question, any hope for landing cameras? Yes, this is all part of the plan. Docking cameras are the starting point of this, so it should come to landing eventually. And then final question is, will we ever get the repair drones back on landing pads? So they said that repair needs a huge overhaul, which in reality it needs starting because we only have a very basic repair right now. But it also relates to salvaging, which is scheduled to release around 3/15, so September. So work on this will directly apply to repair, as salvaging in many ways is the opposite of repair and vice versa. So do expect to see more updates on repair, most likely after salvaging is released, but they are reluctant to use repair drones as it opens that can of worms of why not use drones for everything, which is not really the direction CIG want for Star Citizen. But if you are an early Star Citizen backer, you do have access to a repair drone, an AM1 bot or something along those lines. So we'll see what happens there, but nothing was really clarified. Anyway, that was Star Citizen Live. A pretty good episode this week, tons of information there. Plus, learning that ICache is in and working is music to my ears, and it is only up from here. So now it's all about creating the gameplay that was underpinned by this system, and as Chris Roberts puts it, opening up the floodgates. Let's just hope they can utilize it to help against 30Ks. Anyway, with that said, that is Star Citizen Live. Let us move on. So also this week, both the Persistent Universe and Squadron 42 monthly reports are available. I have covered the PU report in a video linked below, with the Squadron 42 report coming early next week. March's subscriber flare was revealed, and finally the latest portfolio post is released highlighting Caldera. So that brings us to the end of the show. If you do enjoy my content, please consider subscribing and hitting that like button. Also, I am able to do this thanks to my very generous patrons and channel members. If you appreciate what I do and would like to help make it even better from as little as $1 a month, all of the links are provided below.